That should work just fine. Hello folks, I'm Dean with Dean's Woodworking. Welcome to the shop. Y'all come on in and make yourself comfortable. Today, we are going to turn a nested bird or a bird on a nest, and I thought this was an original idea. I will let you know after doing some research, I found one other turner that did that, and I will put a link to his channel right up here. You guys stay tuned. I think you're gonna like this one. We have taken a piece of pecan limb, split it. We'll trim the ends off so we get rid of the chainsaw marks and everything. But this is gonna be our nest. You can see we carved out a little place here for the little bird to sit. Now let's make the bird. By the way, for some of you new turners, this is what they call a woodworm screw. And this is just a piece of 1/4-inch masonite. And I've got several of these so that I can put in here and adjust how far the woodworm screw is going to screw into the piece of wood. Okay, here we're just roughing this piece of wood down. We'll get through this pretty quick. And we're going to go ahead and turn a tenon. Okay, this is going to be the body of our bird right here. And we'll use the roughing gouge just to bring this on down pretty quick here. Okay, so we're going to bring our skew in. Just take a nice smooth cut. That's fairly close to what we want on the back, and we'll adjust this as we go. Again, this was an idea that I had, and anytime we have an idea, we think we're the only ones in the world to have it. But I've learned, after a video I did several years ago where I thought I had came up with the most wonderful box idea in the world, and found out that Sean was worth the effort, had done that box some time ago, that I should check to see if there's any other videos on something before I claim, hey, I had this great idea, it's all my own. Because there were some accusations there that I copied Sean, but honestly, I hadn't even seen his video. Not that I wouldn't copy Sean, he's a great turner and I enjoy watching him myself. I looked this one up myself to see if there was any other videos of a nesting bird or a bird on a nest that had to do with wood turning. And lo and behold, I found one. Like I said earlier, I'll put a link to his video because I think he did a fine job and deserves credit. Here we're making the final cuts to get the shape on the little bird's body. This is a 3/8 spindle gouge we're using, and you'll notice I've just kind of slowed down the cut and working right around into the front of the bird there, or the bird's body. Here we're putting a little bit more of a curve. In nature, you really don't have a whole lot of straight lines. and that was a little bit of too straight for me. So we're just working that back and finishing it up. Now we're going to go ahead and sand this, and I'll start off with 80 grit sandpaper here, and you see in my hand there's 3 other pieces of sandpaper there. I start with 80 on something like this, go to 150, 220, and then finish with 320. And as you can see, some folks will refer to their 80 grit gouge. Well, you see how much is coming off of that. You can literally reshape a project with sandpaper. Here you see we've switched over from the 80, we're on the 150 now, and just kind of smoothing out. Basically you want your 150 to remove any of the scratches you created with the 80. Going from the 80 to 220, this will speed up even more. And all we're doing with the 220 is, again, removing the scratches from the 150. You want to pay closer attention to the end grain there at the very front of the bird. End grain always takes a little bit more attention than your side grain. Now what we've done is pull the tailstock back, and we're curving or rolling over the end of the tail feathers. We're being very careful here because, as you can see, there's only about a 1/4 inch, basically a 1/4 inch dowel of wood holding the front of that. And if you're going to do one of these, don't take it quite so far down until you've trimmed that off. Don't do what I did, in other words. Again, we're using that 3/8 spindle gouge to do that, and then you see when we're sanding that, I go up and down on the end of that end grain there, because right there in the center, it's not covering much sandpaper, so you really do need to move that a little bit. And here we're going ahead and parting that on down a little bit smaller even, so that when we come in with the skew, we can part it right off. And that's what we're doing here. By doing that, you have very little sanding there because you're cutting those fibers, not tearing them. So if you'll see when this comes out, we have just a very little tiny piece to sand off. And here we've got the bird's body in the nest. So the next step will be to turn his head. He doesn't need to be near as big around as his body. So we will work this down pretty quick with this bowl gouge. And whereas we made his body more oval, we're going to make his head a little bit more round. Hopefully that gives you guys a little better view of that. Okay, let's see here where we're at. Okay, I'm going to hit that with some sandpaper before I get it any smaller on either end. Oh, I believe that little head's going to be just right on there. Good deal. We'll go ahead and finish this off and we'll get our little bird put together. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come over here and just get rid of all this. Doesn't have to be to a real sharp point, but we want it pretty small there at the end. And we're going to bring our sandpaper back in, and unlike on the previous sandings, I'm going to skip the 80 this time. We'll just hit it with the 150 for just a minute. And we want to, like I say, we don't want that nose too sharp a point. And let's finish up with some 220 here, or 320, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to reach over. It's just that simple. And what that leaves you guys is just this little bitty tip right there that sands off really quick. Okay, we need to attach his head to this. So let me get a drill bit, we'll get set up, and we will do that right now. Okay, so a big thank you to Glenn, because the other day I drilled out an ornament with one of my regular drill bits, and it walked on me just a little bit. And I'd never had that problem before, but what I had forgot is, when I do that, I always use a brad point bit. Glenn reminded me, hey, use a brad point bit. Brother, I appreciate it, man. You know, you take off for a couple of years and you do forget the little things. So thanks to Glenn for making a comment and reminding me about that. Okay, so we're going to come right in about right here. Let's see if we can get that position just about right. I want his head just a little bit forward. So I'm drilling a 3/16 hole, because I'm using a 3/16 dowel. I'm going to take one of my little carving knives and just right around that, I'm going to trim it off just a little bit so that we don't have all those fibers coming up right there. Let's see, exactly how do we want the little head positioned? I kind of like that right there, because he's got just a little bit of a wormhole right here. I wouldn't mind having that on the bottom. So I'm going to try to get this vertical. So we have our little bird body. We have some 3/16 dowel. I use these little guys for cutting the smaller dowels because they clip it, do a real good job. Okay folks, so we drilled a 3/16 hole in the top of our bird. We drilled a 3/16 hole in the head. We put a 3/16 dowel in there, and there is your little bird on his nest looking at you. The nice thing about that is if you don't glue it down, you can turn the little bird's head so that he's looking at you or looking at whatever you want her to be looking at. So I'm going to go over to the bandsaw and trim the end off of this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I did go over, trim that off. The nest is ready. The only thing we have left to do to this guy is put finish on it, and I don't think I'm even going to sand those ends. I think I'm going to leave them just a little bit rough, but we're just going to coat this whole thing with boiled linseed oil, and I'll put some photos at the end of the video to let you see exactly what he looks like with finish on him. Folks, thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and happy turning.